Welcome to BDI Briefs, where we take a brief look at important issues about the emotional side of diabetes. Thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Dr. Bill Polonsky, president of the Behavioral Diabetes Institute, and Dr. Susan Guzman, director of clinical education at the Behavioral Diabetes Institute. Both are world-renowned diabetes psychologists and two of my favorite people to talk with. My name is Scott Johnson. I've lived with diabetes for almost 45 years, and I've been active in the diabetes social media space and industry for a long time. With introductions out of the way, Bill, what are we talking about today?
Every month we try to identify what some important topic, some important article that we can learn about from our fellow researchers and clinicians around the world and what they brought to us. And I really want to highlight the work of some of researchers and clinicians I know really well, including, myself, actually, this time. This is from an article that we published, again, just a few months ago. And you can see from the slide here, the title of this article, which is long, too long, but really it's about the development and the introduction of a new kind of questionnaire called the Diabetes Constraints Scale. And you may be wondering, oh my goodness, another scale, why? Well, this is a really cool one, and an important reason I want to tell you about why and how it's going to be used. And it's starting to be used now in many different projects and many different clinical sites all over the country and around the world. So what's this about? Well, let me highlight something we said actually in the introduction, which you can see in the slide in front of you. I'm going to read it together with you. It's a bit wordy, so excuse me, but here's what it is. Quantitative and qualitative data suggest that one major contributor to diminished diabetes-related quality of life, in other words, why people often feel fed up with their diabetes, is the individual sense of feeling constrained, limited, or controlled by the demands of diabetes. And when anybody comes to believe that their personal freedom, their sense of spontaneity and flexibility in life must be compromised to manage diabetes effectively, well then, not surprisingly, their diabetes-specific quality of life may understandably suffer. Now, we've spent years here at the BDI trying to understand what diabetes quality of life is all about, especially with a lot of what we call diabetes distress is one, we think, critical aspect of that. And what we realized, really just in the past couple of years, is that there was something we were kind of missing. And it was this sense of how people can feel, again, constrained, limited, having their spontaneity sucked away. And also, more importantly, that we're having all sorts of really cool new interventions that's undoing that. And that if we focus very specifically about that, it will help us to hopefully develop even better tools that can make a difference. So instead of just focusing on, is this person more distressed or more depressed, but really, are we helping people to feel less constrained, helping them to feel freer with their diabetes? And so we ended up, through a fair amount of work, coming up with a scale that was, thank goodness, really short. And what you see on this slide are just the 6 items, just 6 items, that's it. And we use this to begin with in these 2 studies, one for people with type 1, for people with type 2. You don't have to worry about the numbers and standard deviations on the right side. I thought you'd like to see what those 6 items are, see if they make sense for you. Number 1, I spend more time thinking about my diabetes than I'd like to. I feel pressure to eat snacks to avoid low blood sugar problems. I feel restricted about if and or when I can exercise. Number 4, I feel limited about what I should and shouldn't eat. Number 5, I can't be as spontaneous in my life as I want to be. And finally, number 6, I don't feel as free to live my life the way I want. So we found that this was a good place to start. We found that these items really hung together well. They really are one thing. We use what's called factor analysis to establish that. It's true for people with type 1, and we found it's true for people with type 2, at least people with type 2 on insulin. We haven't looked at people not on insulin yet. And what we found, and you'll see this on the next slide, and again, this is a bit much for everybody if you don't like to read scientific articles all the time, but basically what we found is this new scale is significantly related to all the other kinds of things that we thought it'd be related to. And so if I could highlight just one thing in particular, if you see a line that says missed bolus doses, bolus insulin doses, and missed basal insulin doses, that what we find is that people who feel constrained, feel limited by their diabetes, according to our new scale, are more likely to be, omitting, skipping, forgetting, missing their doses. So we think that's really important. They're more likely to have frequent hypoglycemia. They're more likely to, especially for those with type 2, have higher A1Cs. There's all sorts of other links to diabetes to stress and other things that are really important. But what we realize is that this hangs together as an important and unique scale all by itself. If you're a healthcare professional, in fact, even if you're not a healthcare professional, and you're used to finding out more about this scale or using it, because we want to see more and more people using it all over the world so we can begin to show that it's as meaningful as we think it will be, and to show that when we introduce things like introducing to people a continuous glucose monitor for the first time, or medications like some of our new GLP-1 medications, we are helping people to feel freer and less constrained. So we're hoping these instruments will be used more and more. You can find this instrument on our website, behavioraldiabetes.org. You can download it and use it for free. And we'd just love to hear from you and find out what you think about it. So I hope you found this valuable. And I'd love to hear from you, Scott, you, Susan. What do you think about this? Does this fit for you, Scott, for your own life and the people you know? Susan, the way you work, this idea of helping people to feel freer and the fact that so often this feeling of feeling constrained and not spontaneous is an issue. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and the items in the scale also really resonated with me, and this is my first time seeing it. I'm not familiar with what it's all about, and so it feels very reassuring that those really hit home for me in looking at those items. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I
My
was
goal is to help you feel freer and less constrained, Scott. So let's stay with it.
and I was thinking that, people who maybe feel more constrained would because they were trying to overmanage their diabetes. But actually what it shows is that when people feel constrained, it seems to be more related to saying, well, I guess why bother then? And so people seem to have a harder time managing their diabetes to target. And so I think that's it. This scale could be used as a way to identify a very important obstacle to managing diabetes effectively, which is that when you feel constrained or boxed in or you've lost your freedom, you might have a sense of powerlessness over it and think, well, oh, well, I guess I won't be doing that. And so I think it could be used as a way to maybe start a conversation about a new technology that might help, or just identify an obstacle for a person. It opens up a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's wonderful. We want to help people to be more successful, right? By helping them get to a safe place with their A1C, for example, or a safe place with their time in range if they're in CGM. But we want them to improve this important aspect of their quality of life, to not feel like they're so boxed in. But I think, Susan, you probably see what I see. If we talk about this clinically, we do see people who feel so constrained to say, the hell with this, and they end up with higher A1Cs because they can't tolerate it. But we certainly also see people who are really into having like the greatest A1Cs in the world, and they feel super boxed in and constrained as well.
Yeah.
So
That's why I thought was interesting in the data. It seemed to be correlated more with the people that said, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah, at least this study. That's why I'm hoping we'll see more and more studies. I mean, these are just the first two. So we want to learn more about this important dimension that's really never been looked at so in a focused manner like this before. So we're opening up something new for folks.
It makes sense to me. I also, Susan, it really resonated with me about the feeling of boxed in triggers for me a feeling of, well, why bother, or a strong rebellion against it even. So yeah, this makes sense, and it's exciting to me to hear that this is kind of an emerging space in the work that you're doing. So thank you both. And
by
big
the way,
thanks.
Scott, before we go, I just want to highlight something again. You're our expert in this, so I want to make sure we can, appreciate that. Again, you've had type 1 for a very long time, and over the course of those years, maybe it's a mixed bag because technology has gotten more, but I'm hoping maybe you feel a little freer or more spontaneous compared to how you used to. Maybe in this way that we talk about diabetes differently. But do you feel like there's been, what I hope, some movement in the right direction in terms of the way diabetes has been treated, at least for you in your life?
I do, yeah, and that's a great question. I feel like I am working less hard on my diabetes, and I'm doing better than ever before. So, um, it is related to both the technologies that I'm using as well as advancements in the medicines that I'm using, right? So, Susan, you mentioned the technology advances, and I think we can just generally include in that medication adjustments as well. So I don't have to try as hard to keep my highs and lows as within a shorter or tighter range. So um, absolutely.
You, Scott. Well, let's keep finding ways to celebrate this, and more people, and help people to reach these kinds of goals. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, and big thanks to everyone watching. As always, thanks to both of you two for the work that you do and for shining such a bright light on this positive news. It sure is refreshing to talk about, and I'm excited to share more in our next episode. We'll see you then.